we've just been discussing off recording about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and whether or not...
No, you've just been discussing.
We just laughed.
I'm just about to say to you, and whether or not we should actually bring it into being here in this call. So I'm going to do it anyway now.
I might have to go and Google it while you're talking.
Well, basically, one of the best ways to describe it is the joke about the particle physicist who is racing, speeding down the highway and gets stopped by a traffic police person. And he goes up to her and he says, "Excuse me, madam, do you know how fast you were going?" And she says, "No, but I know exactly where I am." And so the uncertainty principle means that you can only know one factor. You can't know two. So it's one of those things that the more you try and focus in on one thing, the other thing gets more and more fuzzy. So when we've been dealing with the uncertainty principle that we've been dealing with over the last while, it's a case of we've been invited to focus on that word uncertainty to the extent it's become a bogeyman. It's a big bogeyman mess person thing. And it's totally ruining a lot of people's idea of how they're going to progress, how they're going to go forward. And I think that that's part of the thing, is that we've been dished out uncertainty left, right and centre. And quite honestly, I don't want any more. But at the same time, it's a natural state of being because we really don't know what's around the corner.
So when in life are we ever completely certain of anything?
Exactly.
So why is it now a scary thing?
Exactly, because we're being taught that it's a scary thing. The only thing that we can be certain of, and I think that even now after the conversation we were having today, that only one of them is true now, the only thing we can be certain of is death and taxes. Somebody somewhere is going to make you taxed. Somebody somewhere is going to be dying because we only have a finite place to be.
So my quick Google is telling me that your hiding what's these pieces uncertainty principle is purely around the velocity of an object and the position of an object. So it's not about everything in the world and two focus points.
Well,
because I do believe you can be focused on more than one thing at a time.
But you can, but not everybody can.
Yes, but I'm saying I don't believe it's a complete no-brainer that everyone is in that way.
No, but
so that's I just thought I would throw in that.
Kind of coming round to that thing, I was extrapolating.
In other words, you were making it make sense. So that works.
You could say that the only certainty in life is that there will be uncertainty, because there's always uncertainty. I think maybe, Leslie, what you're getting at is that recently with the pandemic and the current financial situation, the number of uncertainties or the plethora of things that are uncertain has increased. So it's almost like you say you can focus on one thing that's uncertain and cope with it. And then the second uncertainty appears, and that's a wee bit more of a burden. And then when you have 3, 4, 5, 6 things about which you can't be certain, the burden becomes heavier and heavier and presses down on us, so that we get to a point where we think, what the is going on? And because of that uncertainty, we start to get anxious and worried and stressed. And that's never a good thing. What I would suggest is that, number one, you don't watch the telly, you don't watch the news, you don't read newspapers. In fact, I advise my clients that, because they're structured to make you feel anxious and stressed. What about this? What if inflation hits this? What if COVID returns? What if there's another monkeypox outbreak? What if this? What if that? And eventually you kind of throw in the towel and say, I'm going to live in a darkened room, because there's no point in getting out because of all the uncertainty.
Well,
so one thing you can do is not buy into it.
It's an interesting thing that you say there about COVID returning. It's never left. It won't leave. Well, our reaction to it, our understanding of it, our ability to cope with it will change. But it's never going to go away.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the way it was portrayed initially, through lack of knowledge and ignorance, was we're all going to die. I think there was one of these boffins said, right, it's going to be cumulative. So by the year 20, whatever it is, there'll be no life left on the planet because you'll catch it and give it to Tony. Tony will give it to his wife will give it to the kids will give it to the kids at school, and so on and so on and so on. So the extrapolation was that we're all doomed, Captain Manning, we're all doomed, which was preposterous.
Well, yeah, all you had to do is read Stephen King's The Stand and you know exactly how it works.
Anyway, don't get me started.
Oh, this is it though. It's about leadership as well. It's about someone who obviously had not a clue and was always uncertain as to what he was going to say and tell people, but understanding the power of uncertainty and using it to their own needs. So totally going against the advice of the people in front of them who told them one thing and then actually telling people another thing. So everybody's sitting there waiting to see who's telling the truth, what's actually going to happen. And because of that box in the corner, and possibly the one that we're sitting next to now, we have so much access to so many different things that actually are lifted out to make explanations of one part, which is where you extrapolate all the fear and all the unnecessary butt clenching that goes on when people mention viruses now. I mean, we had a similar kind of situation when we ended up with the AIDS pandemic in the 80s. There was panic and absolute uproar, and people started blaming people. And actually, it's a virus. These things are around. They have been around since the year dot. And the only thing about it is that one of the best things that I remember from War of the Worlds was the last part where they talk about how our immunity was made and how we got to be immune to it, whereas the aliens, the Martians, they weren't immune to it. So they died. But this is it. It's a big reminder to say we have an immune system. We will get caught out, and anybody who's, you know, not certain of their ability to deal with that is going to actually worry about it more.
I think you've got the health thing, certainly.
Yeah.
COVID, Omicron, Delta, Alpha, every letter of the Greek alphabet, and so on and so forth. Then the monkey thing came along, and we've had Asian flu, avian flu, Spanish flu, through any country. So that's the health part of it, right? Which obviously is very concerning because you do get apprehensive about your health, particularly if you're feeling a bit under the weather. Oh, I must have COVID. Well, not necessarily. But there's also the other I alluded to earlier. There's all the uncertainty around about finances, energy provision. And my wife said there, when she was cooking the tea, she says, apparently by November, we won't be able to afford to cook. We won't be able to afford to eat our houses, light our houses. So we'll all have to stay in the kitchen. And apart from one corridor through to the bathroom, that's it. Because we can't afford to heat or light or whatever. And we'll turn the gas on and not turn the heating on. So we'll have the stove on 24/7. And I thought, dear, oh dear. And this is
a bit like the 1970s with the power cuts.
I was just thinking that.
I remember them well.
I don't. Yeah. But it's that fear factor, isn't it? Sorry, I had to.
Thanks, Angela. You're just waiting for when that was going to pop in this evening. You've done too badly. You've got it within about 5 minutes.
That's an absolute certainty. That is going to happen here.
Yes.
Not my fault. I wasn't around for that.
Season, Angela's going to say, I wasn't born then. In one way or another.
Sorry.
Fair enough. But let me tell you, it wasn't funny.
No, but it's that fear factor, isn't it? Someone's painted this picture of this dystopian, this is what the world's going to be like in 2 months' time. And because of what we've come through, it's more believable. But is it?
Well, to tell you the truth, the fact that they're like playing every dystopian movie known to man in the last 2 years.
But that's not any different to anything before. You're just more aware of it.
Yeah, that's it though. You're getting primed now. It's like the blue touch paper and stand well back.
So personally, I've not watched any of the dystopian movies because I've chosen not to. Like Willie, I don't put the news on. I get my news from watching The Last Leg. That's not really news, right? But that's the only way I know what's going on. That plus the odd BBC alert on my phone if I choose to read it that day. I don't bother. Now, yeah, okay, I might be seen as being ignorant because I've got no idea what's going on in the world and I get little snippets here and there, but I'm not going to be brainwashed by what's out there and what's coming. I'm going to choose for myself what my reality is. And yeah, okay, I might not have the heating on for as long, but actually I don't have the heating on a huge amount anyway. I'll wear a blanket or a jumper. That's not anything that's going to change. And I think for me, I've got the mindset that it's going to be okay. Now, I might be unusual in that mindset. I hope not. But if I'm unusual in that mindset, I'd like to take my clients with me and let's all be okay.
Yeah, it's not
unusual. Yeah, and what I was going to say was, as well as we talking about uncertainty, what keeps disturbing us and go through all these things that's happened. But remember that different people have different levels of uncertainty. Some people can cope with things more than others because they don't really get that. Like you said, Angela, you might not read it. Willie doesn't watch any of the news because you don't get that uncertain feeling that other people do. You can tolerate more, you can avoid more of that coming into your life. And I think Willie made a great point earlier is that because the last couple of years everybody's talked about the health, but for me, looking at it, because I came from maybe a finance background, working in a bank, we kept saying is we wouldn't see any of this really hitting until about 2023, maybe 2024, before the pandemic actually hits, because we were looking more from an economic point of view rather than the health point of view. The health is always is the first part. But the one thing, it's fun enough, we talked about this afternoon, is learning from the past. That's something that we do as therapists. We help people to learn from the past. Yeah. Now, it's been alluded to here. I know Angela's too young to know about these kind of things, but back in the 70s, when we did have all these things that were done, like the power cuts and everything, we also had, remember, Willie and Liza promised, we had interest rates of what, 16, 17% for mortgages.
Yeah.
I remember I was only a kid and I remember my dad talking about things like that. But we came through that. We did the same thing. We through the winter when we didn't have fuel or things. Remember, a lot of us, they couldn't even afford that, never mind because of the economy. We just didn't have houses that had those things in it at that time. I didn't have a central heated house when I was growing up at that age. You're right, putting a blanket on it, or as Billy Connolly would say, throwing a blanket with sleeves, means a duffel coat on the top of the bed, especially when the priest comes round. Yeah, you put these things on while he's got his arm stuck in the leg. Was it the duvet or something?
Duvet.
Yeah, and that's what it was like. We just did whatever was needed. And that's because the tolerance to that was we didn't listen to news or get it from that. We just knew we were facing day to day and we had to deal with that. The uncertainty was what we allowed to happen or we didn't allow it to happen. The certain thing is, what can we do? The uncertainty was what we can't do. So what was more important? Deal with what you can.
It is
so
the
you didn't see as many people were so worried about that in those days.
It is the historical factor because there are many people of a certain age who have decided that they don't really want to know what happened before. Nobody asks, nobody deals with it. And the one thing that came out of the leaders in this generation was, this is unprecedented. That was that other unword, unprecedented. And it was not unprecedented because the Spanish flu had happened in the 1918 and 500 million people worldwide had died from that. So it was not unprecedented. Our reaction to it was unprecedented.
But that's how they caused the uncertainty, because if you think about it, what's the one main big difference from we're talking about from like, if you go back to 1918, the 70s, the 80s, and all these things happened, was media. Yeah. We didn't have as much exposure to media as what there was then. That was one of the reasons we did not buy into all the things like that at that time, is because there wasn't like this. It's not in front of your face all the time. The reason this is the pandemic has been, to me, over exaggerated at times how bad it was, is just because the media is there and because everybody's focusing on it. If you focus on something else, Leslie alluded that earlier, trying to focus the two things, whether it's right or wrong, Heisenberg's theory. The one thing is, if we say we can't focus on both things at one time, then all we need to do is get our clients and us to focus on something else. That way, we're not worried about the uncertainty of what's happening with all this. What we are focusing on is, what can we actually deal with? It's like the circles of concern, or looking at things that you can actually, what is it in your world that you can deal with it? What can you control? So you can control something, you deal with that. There is no uncertainty then, because you know what you can actually do. So that stops clients from worrying about all this in the first place, because that's one of the first things I go through with them, is going through something concerned, I go through the wheel of life, seeing what the issues they've got are, how can we put that right? Not whether we're uncertain about the pandemic or whether the jobs are going to be here or when we're going to be able to heat our houses or whatever it is. Those things are going to happen no matter what. So why don't we focus on the things that really are important to people when they're sitting in front of us?
And it's that piece of actually teasing out what is important.
Yeah.
And where can we raise your resilience levels? Because actually it's about how resilient are we to that uncertainty. So I might be more resilient, but that's maybe because I'm not allowing that uncertainty to hit me. And it is that tolerance piece, isn't it? So everyone's got a tolerance to everything. It's just, where is your tolerance level? And if we as therapists and as coaches can help raise those tolerance levels, improve that resiliency, and as you said, Tony, put your focus somewhere that the uncertainty is not on that focus point, then life does feel easier.
Yeah, because don't focus on what your fears or you feel your fears are, or the personal circumstance being caused by what the media is telling you. Focus on what's controllable by yourself, what you can do in your own life, what's happening with that. It's like someone said to me the other day, he says, but they'd lost their job, so they're worried about their income. And all the energy was going into that worry about the fact there's no good income. Why not use the same energy to look at how they're going to change that? So how they're going to get themselves looking for a job, get their resume, get themselves ready for what's coming up. But they were so busy focusing on the other thing that they were feeling so tired when it came to looking at trying to get themselves a job. All the energy was just literally sapped. They said they had nothing left to look for the jobs. So all we did was get refocused. Okay, like you said, Angela's, what is important to you now? If you haven't got the income that you had before, what's going to happen? What have you not got if you've not got that? What have you got though when you've not got that now? And they actually had time to spend time with their family, which seemed a real weird thing, but they went, at least I know I've got that. So they're not working all day long. They can spend that time with family, use certain times. So what they did was they actually scheduled in time for writing resumes, time for actually looking for jobs, time for being online, and fitted in between gaps with their family. So it wasn't overwhelming because it's all focused on one thing.
I often quote the 3 lines from the Serenity Prayer. Grant me the grace, resilience, whatever, to accept what I can't change.
That's my
Grant me the
favorite.
strength, focus, power, whatever, to change what I can, and give me the wisdom to know the difference. Acceptance is a wonderful thing. It took me a long time to get the concept. Accept what you can't change. I couldn't change COVID. I can't change the bank rate going up. I can't change the fact that inflation is going through the roof. I moaned at my wife after coming back from the shop and going, have you seen the price of X? Right? I can't change it. What I can do, as you say, Tony, is I can go with what I know I can do. So yes, I can do my resume. Yes, I can do my CV. Look for the positives. Be grateful for what is there. And as you say, fear is very debilitating. Right? So if we have the choice, go down the fearful route or not, right? When did fear or worry or anxiety or stress ever make a bad situation better? That's a rhetorical question. It's only human, in my opinion, for us to go down that route, because we are kind of wired for negativity. But if we look at the opposite and say, okay, that's a lot of uncertain shit there. I don't know what's going on here. And I could go down that route of worrying and becoming fearful, and all my energies and passion is taken up in that. Or I could take a step back and say, can't change it. What can I change? Well, I can change that, that, and that. Oh, why don't you? Okay, I think I'll do that then. And it's that kind of mind flip, if you like, from worry to accepting that state of affairs and saying, right, what can I do? And it's not as easy as snapping your fingers. We're all prone to it, if you like. But it just takes a wee bit of a kind of flip, if you like, going, worry, anxiety, stress. That's not helping. In fact, it's making things worse. It's making me feel worse. So why don't we look for what can I do and go for that? And another thing is celebrate small victories. So when that guy's written his CV, right, and then it goes into an employer and he gets a reply, it's all kind of starting to mount up. And all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe things aren't quite as bad as I'd made them out to be. we're wired for negativity, and I was the same. I mean, I'm not Mr. Positivity now, but I refuse to engage with negativity now if I can possibly avoid it. And one of the things, don't watch the news, don't read the papers, and you're bang home, you say, the media, oh, because they've all got a slant. Right, so that part of the media will say this thing, the other part of the media will say that thing, one newspaper will say one thing, and so on and so forth. And what really, I guess, amused me was one expert would go, oh, we're all doomed, and we're going to have 40 million deaths and blah, blah, blah. And another expert with another long list of letters after he's got complete bullshit, right? That's totally over exaggerated. Worst case scenario, it's this. And what I found just basically by browsing, if you like, is that generally the guy who was underplaying it was right, which begged the question of why were the other people overplaying it? And I'm going to leave this final thing. Apparently in the Parliament, civil service, whatever it was, they had nudge units. And their policy was, let's make people so afraid we can nudge them in the direction that we want them to take, which I think is totally and utterly unacceptable.
Kind of
But isn't that how propaganda works?
Yeah.
Well, what was it, propaganda? I'm not sure it's propaganda, but you have these muppets standing beside the Prime Minister saying, yes, we're all doomed, there'll be 40,000 deaths this week. And then 2,000 deaths inspired. But nobody turned around and said, wait, what, you were 38,000 deaths out, mate, and you're meant to be the chief expert. You're creating uncertainty in people's minds, you're making them afraid. What do you say to that? Personally, I slapped them stupid. But anyway, that's just me. Because people
Willie
will,
for MP.
people will, all human nature take all that board and go, oh my goodness, I can't go out.
The biggest word, though, the biggest trigger word there was death. That's the biggest trigger word. As soon as anybody, it's like when people use the word cancer, which is all over the place now because the ratio is now 1 and 2. And in 2010, it was 1 in 4. So it hasn't taken that long for it to come down to 1 and 2, very quickly followed on the heels of each other. However, when you say that word, when you read that word, when it's there in front of you, many people think death right away. It's almost a automatic reaction. And it used to be something that made me quite upset when I was at work before, when I was working in the vets, because you couldn't say the word tumor, you couldn't say the word mass, you couldn't say the word, everybody, oh, they're going to die, they're going to die. No, not necessarily. Let's actually take a look at it and see what we can do. There's always...
But I think that's the thing, the language hasn't caught up. So yes, it may be cancer. But first of all, I believe we all have cancer cells in our systems. It's just whether they're switched on or not. And the next point of it is, the quicker you actually catch it, the more likelihood of you surviving it and beating it and getting rid of it from your system.
Yeah.
So it's not the death sentence that it once was in every case.
No,
in actual fact, more cases than not, it is something that you can survive from.
Yeah, the thing is, the most that people hear about are the death sentences. That's the thing that actually, because of that, because of the end, it's, it's final, it's this. That's the thing that kind of sticks in their heads. And part of that has got to do with the focus of staying away from that word, not wanting to be anywhere near it, not wanting to understand what it is. However,
because the fear is attached to the word.
Yes, and it's a certainty. And it's the one thing that is, nobody's going to get out of this life alive. That you just, and it's one of those things that are you going to sit and worry about it? I mean, Dark Side of the Moon, when it came out, the guy sitting there going, I'm not afraid to die. Why should I be afraid to die? Everybody's got to do it. It's going to happen whether I like it or not. But again, it's what we do up to that point. And I think that that's where it comes in for us as therapists and as coaches, is to actually allow people to understand that what they do is deal with what's in front of them now. And, if it's a bit like me in housework. I look at it and go, well, where the hell do I start?
I just don't bother.
Well, you see, that's just it. I tend not to, but occasionally, you know, if I'm having somebody over to stay, I kind of need to get the bed and find where the bed went.
Just don't invite anybody. It's much easier.
But it's when
I got rid of the spare bed.
it's one of those things, and actually what happens is that you have to start with one thing. You focus on one thing, you pick it up and you go, where am I going to put that? Okay, I'm going to start organizing things. And taking that power back, allowing yourself to understand that you have the power to do that. And a lot of that happens with fear as well. I've always found that people who are in that total rabid rage of just terror, where they just don't know what to do, and they're in fugue state, they're just running, and you have to stop them. Finding out how to stop them can be interesting, but at the same time, it usually is another trigger to use. You think, you know, do you really think it's a good idea to show this to your kids? They're going to react like this every time something goes wrong in their life? Is this what you want to happen? How about showing them a different way? Because there is a different way. And, you know, it's just finding triggers to a certain extent. But also it's the fact that for a long, long time, we've not been the masters of our own lives. We've been told to go here, stand there, get this, do that. And it's almost institutionalization.
Only if you listen to it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who don't feel they have the choice. They aren't aware of the power of going into a supermarket and seeing them bump the prices up and look at it and go, actually, no, I can do without that. I can go and get some flour, and I can go and get some water, and I can go and get something else and put it in a bowl, and I can make the damn bread. And actually, while I'm doing that, I'm doing something mindful. I'm exercising my arms. I know what's exactly in it because I put it there, and I can sit like they do on the program where they sit in front of the ovens watching these things rise and have one of these like totally meditative moments. And if it doesn't work, I've had a laugh.
But it's not just that. It's like Willie said, but how good does it feel when you've done something for yourself?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you've done it? You've achieved that. Especially someone that doesn't bake or cook or anything. When you go and do something like that because it's the only choice you feel, but you actually feel, wait a minute, this is much better. How many families would actually go back to what it was like when we were younger, where one set meal, when you all have the same meal, rather than somebody getting a microwave to stick a ping in here and someone goes in somewhere else? It also brings families together. So the uncertainty or the chasing for certainty, well, a lot of people causes the uncertainty because they're always looking for people who make sure like the friends or family and saying, well, yeah, I need them to tell me everything's okay. So did I do this right? Did I do that right? Yeah. By chasing, trying to be certain, you actually cause uncertainty to happen. So why not just let things happen? And I think that's the biggest thing out of this that really comes out of it, is stop worrying so much. Again, it all comes back to the same thing. What is anxiety? It's what if something happens? Well, why not just look and say, well, okay, what if it doesn't?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't happen? So what is the uncertainty? The uncertainty is, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's exciting. See that thing they think is fear, and they get that wee rumble in the stomach because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could also say the next person sitting next to them went, I can't wait till tomorrow because I don't know what's going to happen. So they've got anticipation, they've got exhilaration, they've got that great feeling. But your mind cannot tell which one's which. It's only what you tell it. So if you suddenly turn that into fear, that's what's going to happen. But if you tell it, I can't wait till tomorrow, this is going to be brilliant. I'm going to get up, I don't know what I'm going to do, I've got no plans. That feels amazing. Just go out, I might make some bread, or I might go and do something, whatever it is. Try that. That's what people should go and do. Try something like that for one day. Just do that. Go sleep at night with no plans for the next day. Get up the next morning and just go, this is fantastic. I don't know what's going to happen today, but I'm going to enjoy it.
And when I was growing up, it was a case of, oh, it's Tuesday, therefore it must be mince.
Yes. Friday, it's fish.
Yeah. Monday, it's the leftovers and the
from Sunday.
And you know, and Wednesday night for us was fish, and I was like, no, I don't like that. I don't want that. Well, suit yourself, then go and eat elsewhere.
I think there's a cultural thing as well, Leslie.
Yeah.
That we won't refer to Angela's tender years, but
I'm about to do that.
yeah, the
I
food
thought you were just fixing your hair. That's all it was.
the food was put down in front of you, eat it or go hungry, right?
Yeah.
I think also in the past couple of decades, the culture has become, and I'm going to say the word nanny state, where there's been a kind of abdication of responsibility. That's someone else's responsibility, right? Health and safety, the rules and regulations, what you can do and can't do, and what you can say and what you can't say. I'm amused that was it Starbucks or something like that had to put a warning on their coffee cups in their
McDonald's.
drive-throughs. Do not put this hot coffee cup between your legs when you drive away in case it. And sure enough, some dizzy bun did that and got a scalded nether region and sued the coffee company.
Yeah.
I think won. You think, how stupid was that? Where has common sense gone? Where is
So
not
actually, a little bit more on that one is that I believe it was McDonald's, and I believe that they were heating it far too hot. So it was
right? Okay,
a little
There
bit
was
more
a-
than
there was
just.
a-
Yeah, but whether it was too hot or not, Willie's right. It's
don't put
common
it between
sense. You
your
don't put
legs.
something hot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
but
drive, move.
But the first one, I think, was with an RV driver. And this was where the precedent was set, was because he went and left it on autopilot. He left the
Well, that was yeah. So that's not the hot coffee story. That's
and he went to
autopilot.
make himself a cup of coffee and crashed the car. And he said, because it didn't say on the manual, do not leave the wheel to make yourself a cup of coffee, he got millions.
but it's like that you buy something and it says, do not eat the packaging.
And my favorite one is peanuts may contain peanuts.
Yeah.
You can say nuts.
But I think
I hope it contains
there is a kind of tendency now to not take common sense steps because we think it's someone else's problem. It's like health and safety, for example, that if you were in your workplace and somebody spilled some coffee on the floor, which is a slip risk, right, well, that's not my fault. It was that stupid person there. But the actual good part of it was, well, it's your job having noticed it to wipe it up. But if you go, well, it's not my job. It was like in the industry I worked in, there was a snowman. It's not my job. And that was it, right? So common sense went out the window. There was a kind of mollycoddling, if you like, that didn't happen in my younger days when you get popped out of the house and go and play and come back when you're hungry. And that built a degree of resilience, right? Because you went and made your own amusement, come back when you're hungry. But now I think with social media and with all the stuff that goes on, the influencers and all that kind of stuff, that we're kind of spoon-fed. And I'll do it that way because that's what the influencer says. Is that the right way to do it? Oh, I'm not sure. I'll go and have a think about it. Another, just a lighter note, Tony Robbins did a wee skit on uncertainty. And Tony here alluded to it. Uncertainty can be a great thing.
Mhm.
You're going to a party, and you think, I wonder who'll be there. I wonder what the music will be like. I maybe see so-and-so I haven't seen for years. I wonder what the drink will be like. This. And you get quite excited. Or
Well,
you
there'll
go
be
to watch
food.
a band, or what the food will
Yeah.
be like, or whatever. You've been recommended to go and see a movie, and you say, oh, I wonder if this will be good. I'm looking forward to this. And Tony Robbins, there's another coach called Mel Robbins, no relation,
Mhm.
lady,
Yeah.
but he's not said the difference between fear and excitement is what you tell your brain.
Yeah.
Right. So she does a little skit. I'm going out to talk to 5,000 people on a TED talk. Am I scared? A wee bit. Am I excited? Even more.
Mm.
Right. There's a story about Bruce Springsteen, who's given more huge stadium concerts than everybody on the planet, apart from the Beatles. He said, I was always excited. I think, God, there's 20,000 people out there. I've got to entertain them. But he turned that fear into excitement. He says, this is going to be a brilliant night. I'm going to knock their socks off. And away he went. And if you can flip that from fear to excitement, because as you say, Tony, they're almost two sides to one coin.
Yeah.
Again, just throw that in there because flip your mind, flip your brain, whatever it is. Am I afraid? But what if I'm excited about this? What if it's exciting? Bungee jumping? Ooh, maybe I'll be afraid about that. But you know what? It'd be brilliant when I could turn around and tell people I did it.
Yeah,
I think go back, see, we talked about that back. I know, again, Angela's now age, apologise, you won't remember these days. But when we were younger and you got Christmas, you got one main thing, you might have a couple of small things, but you get one main present. We look forward to that uncertainty leading up to Christmas, what you're going to get was unbelievable. For kids, that was the thing. You'd have kids one waking up saying, why are we waking up? Waking everybody else in the house up because they wanted up first to get their present. Sometimes now, because it's more of a commercial society, they get just about everything they want. So it's not the same anticipation. So somewhere along the line, we've lost that way of looking at uncertainty as being something that can be good. It's been nurtured into people and ingrained or indoctrinated into them that uncertainty has to be fear, but it doesn't. If you think of sport, how many people go along because they don't know what's going to happen in a game of football, rugby, whatever it is, as they go to watch. It's that anticipation that it could go or it might not. How many years did you see that at Wimbledon? People talked about this thing what was it called? Hemden Hill. You know, in the back of the mind, people seem to know he's never going to make that. He never quite had that to go over. But the anticipation, that uncertainty every year that he might get to a final, he might win. There was thousands of people sitting on a hill just to watch him doing that. Not even in the actual stadiums that they're doing it, but out there. And it happens in just about every sport there is. That's the thing we need to find back for our kids and for this generation now, is that bit to understand that it's all about thought. Uncertainty is a word, nothing else, nothing more. It's just a word. You take the UN out of it, then you come certain. So that's what you're doing, is taking two letters and suddenly something that's so bad can be something that's good. So if you thought that way and we teach them that way, is how to turn it around in your mind, there won't be an issue. And your next generation going through it will not have the same as the immediate impact that we're having at the moment.
And when you're looking at the what ifs as well, how often have you said or you've heard, what's the worst that could happen? How much more fun would it be if you just flip that? What's the best that could happen?
Now, what if everything goes right? It's still a what if. What if everything goes right tomorrow? What if we go up every day in the sunshine? That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Then we're probably not living in Scotland.
Yes, I've heard for weeks in the sunshine. What if we got up every day in the sunshine? But that's how simple it is. What if, whatever it is, we just add it in. People have to learn again the fact that it's just a thought, nothing more. The thought gets an emotion, turns into an action, turns into your behaviour because we allow it.
The thing is,
if we don't allow it, it can't be there.
I don't really do the what if it goes wrong. I'm like what if it works like this?
That's it. That's where I look at it.
I love what if because I look at it, you know, like, oh, what if I do that? What if that happens?
How much of that though is because we are of a mindset of having done the transformational work on ourselves anyway, because you don't get to be coaches and therapists and everything else unless you've gone through some of it at least, that we've already shifted our mindset to have that opinion in our viewpoint. And if you've always had that, Leslie, fantastic. Well, but I know myself, I've gone through moments of what's the worst that could happen, and then the what if spirals. And all it takes is someone to say to you, flip it.
I never actually thought about it because I just went and did it and then realised that there could have been something going on afterwards.
That's like how you've been like kicked in the head by elephants and knocked over however many times.
Kicked in the head by an elephant.
Where were you kicked by an elephant?
My head was in the wrong place, and I was watching a nice bum that was kind of drains down in the moat. And
okay, Angela, how did you manage to load the tone already like that?
I don't know. I apologize.
A really good conversation.
You really should.
Sorry.
You should have done the what if I say this.
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen if I ask Leslie anything?
It's gonna happen. No, it's one of those. I mean, it's like the one big thing that did happen for me that changed my life and got me into that point where the elephant could kick me down the moat. And that was the situation where I didn't think of what will happen if I do this. It was a case of, it's a really beautiful day outside. I'm sitting in here with 25 other kids banging away at this gargantuan typewriter, and I don't like it. So I'm just going to tear this paper out because I know exactly what I want to do. I want to go and work in a zoo. And I've got one just down the road. So I'm going to take the exercise that I should be doing out of the roller, and I'm going to put a new paper in, and I'm going to start writing something. And I got caught. The sun went out, everything came to a full stop. There was deathly silence. And they all sat and waited for Genghis Khan and Drag to take me away by the scruff of the neck and belt me. And it never happened. I was waiting, and somehow, and it does happen like that. I think I have a talent for dissociation. I just leave. And I just wait to see what will happen, because, you know, whatever it's going to be, there'll be something after. And I think the biggest fear was not Genghis Khan and Drag, but actually
Which
my
sounds
mother.
quite horrifying.
Oh, she was, this lady, she was one of the old-fashioned teachers, and she could belt. My two sisters had her. She could belt. But it didn't seem to be something that frightened me. I was more interested in what would happen if I could get what I wanted to do. And I was 11 when that was happening. So I'd
Just thought
always,
see, for the younger generation, Leslie, you might have to explain what you mean by belt. That means the teachers punched them or something like that these days, so I would explain it's a wee bit different.
well, the school I went to, that was quite possibly going to happen too. We had one of them that used to say, we used to have these things called blackboard rubbers. So like blackboard erasers, because we had blackboards that we used to put chalk on. So you had to have something to wipe them off, and a duster, it was called. And it was wood, and then it had a felt base on it. And we had one guy who was really good at it. He'd be doing his things on the blackboard, and he would hear someone talking, and before you even knew it, was like Bruce Lee, and this projectile would come and go bang right in between your eyes. Didn't matter where you were in the classroom. If you were the one talking, you had the big dusty chalk thing on your face and a bruise to go with it. These days, wouldn't happen. But that was your health and safety. If you're going to talk in the class, it's going to hurt. Don't do it.
A hard lesson to learn. I would teach you who had a belt you put around his neck, right? And it was a stiff thing. It was like a boomerang. If you're out of line, you just always you get it round the ear hole, right? Obviously, in today's society, that's unacceptable. But back to Tony's point about thought,
Been unacceptable for quite a while.
is that it's when you have a negative thought or something's negative, it's the meaning you attach to it. Right? If I think this is going to be shit, it'll be shit.
Yeah.
Right? If I think it'll be good, there's a good chance it'll be good. Right? So it's like we've talked about flipping the switch. If I think something's going to be bad, it probably will be bad. If I think it's going to be good, it probably will be good. So it's getting into that way of thinking. I've got to a ripe old age, right, and I'm thinking, I don't know how long I've got left. I'm going to go that way, that this is going to be good. And if something bad happens, I'll deal with it. I won't worry about it. I won't fret, if you like. If something not ideal, not 100% positive happens, I'll just got to deal with it, right? And that has made me a much calmer individual. And people who knew me years ago were quite surprised to hear me talking that way. But it's a wonderful thing to adopt, if you like. What's the worst can happen? Who cares? I'll deal with it. But there's always a chance that something brilliant will happen. That's a much better thought to hang on to. So I'm going to get down that road.
How does it feel when you say to yourself, a thumb's going to be good? How does that make you feel? You really get adrenaline build up, you start feeling good, you start to smile. And what you don't realise is, Willie's probably just said it, but him having that new persona, the way he is now, if he met some of his friends from previous and they see him, they'll start smiling because they're laughing or smiling. I'm not sure which one, because they go, how can he be like that? But at least he's making them laugh or smile, so they feel good. And that's the great thing about it. By giving that thought, was it to say, like, I thought I am, therefore I am. I thought, so I think, therefore I am positive, therefore I am going to do this.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant, because what you think about is, by chasing uncertainty all the time, and that's where you want to live your what if, all you're doing is procrastinating. So just think about how many things that Willie, you were missed out on before that he's not missing out on now, just by changing that thought. How many things he said now that, yeah, might be great, might be crap, but at least he's tried. Have a go. Just don't let things just sit there and look back. There's a great thing somebody told me once about someone sitting in their deathbed, and if they're allowed one wish, they were given them to look back on their life. But when they looked back on their life and they looked back, they went, but I never did this, I never did that, I never did that. You see, is that what you really want to do if that was you? Do you want to get to the end of your life and look back and say, I haven't really done that? And the simple thing is, people talk about then, yeah, but I'll do it when. It's uncertain now, but I'll do it when I retire, I'll do it. So when I think about it, you start working, what, 16 years old? They tell you now you can retire at 67 at least, right? So there's 51 years. What's the average age of death in Scotland? 78, 79 years old. So let me think about it as, I'm going to work for 50 years so I can have 9 good years after it. Why would you do that? Why
And are you going to want to go
uncertainty?
bungee jumping when you're 70?
Oh,
Well,
yes.
you wanna do it when
Yeah,
you're
if I get a
20?
chance, yes. I'll try that.
But would you rather have done it when you were 20, enjoyed it, and kept doing it?
See, I have done it. That's why I know I'll enjoy it for doing something, so I don't mind. I like
I'm
that.
not interested in
But
bungee jumping, but scalping across the Mongolian plains on a horse, I'll do that.
There's another saying that, so similar to what you're saying, Tony, that you're at the pearly gates, you meet St. Peter. He says, well, how's your life been? Well, so. And as you walk in, someone walks out, the person you could have been. Right? And he's there to take your place, or she's there to take your place. That's the person you could have been had you gone for it, if you like. And I've done some crazy things in my life. They even gave me a gun. But there were times where I could have gone for it and didn't. I bottled it. Right? Generally not the physical things like rugby and football and shooting and whatnot. But could I have got another degree? Yes, I could have got promoted higher up the chain in the police. Yes, I could have done. I didn't do it. Laziness, fear, whatever it was. Now, within reason, I'll try anything. But because there is that anticipation, there's that excitement. And could I do this? Yeah, I can. Well, I'm going to give it a go. So you're quite right, Tony. It's energizing. It's exciting. There's all the physiological things with the adrenaline flowing and the endorphins going. And how do you feel? I feel quite enervated just talking about it.
Yeah.
And I can transmit that to other people. Just think about it. Just think how good that would be. How would that look? How would it sound you manage that? Oh, it'd be brilliant. Well, just go for it. And once you've raised the tempo, raised the energy, the negativity kind of just disappears.
Yeah, but this is it though. What we do as human beings, because we're kind of pack animals and we like to make sure that we're all in the same situation. It's a case of our state of mind can be a social disease. We can be infectious. So it's like when it's like how laughter yoga works, basically. Somebody starts laughing and then somebody is laughing at the fact that they're laughing, but then they're laughing. Then everybody else starts laughing at what's going on because it's ridiculous. But at the same time, the effects that it's having, the endorphins it's releasing, the total kind of dopamine hit that you're getting is absolutely astounding. And that's the thing about it though. It's fleeting. Everybody wants to have it. Well, not everybody, but many people. Yes, I know it was almost a generalization there. I'm allowed to.
You know how much I love them, Leslie.
If you're allowed to say that you weren't born yet, I'm allowed to generalize occasionally. So they have a deal for you. So it's one of those things that many people will find that they want to keep that feeling. That's a lot of the times now why people get dissatisfied with the relationships. They think of the fairy tale. They think of that. Oh, wow, my knees have gone weak. My stomach's gone amazing. There's like cotton wool in my mouth instead of a tongue. And it's like, I just want to be with this person all the time because they make me feel so good. And then they get used to each other and they don't feel so good anymore. And then, they have to do things like wash the dishes and make meals every night and do stuff that,
all that unsexy stuff.
All that unsexy stuff. So people they kind of want this thing that they've been told is always available there. You just have to go somewhere else to get it.
I think I agree with what you're saying, Leslie, but it's we all know it's unrealistic, right? I can't all be sweetness and light and flowers and a bowl of cherries.
We're not straight arrows.
Don't go bursting my bubble. I'm still hoping for all that.
I don't think that you're talking about good feelings, right? I remember my dad, who was quite a serious dude. He loved Morecambe and Wise, right? He loved Morecambe and Wise, and he would laugh uproariously at Morecambe and Wise, and I wasn't laughing at them. I was laughing at him.
Yeah.
This normally quite straight-laced serious dude, pissing his sides, and I was laughing at him. Right? But see that feeling. when you're feeling a wee bit meh, right, just sit down, close your eyes and think of a time when you felt absolutely brilliant. You were at that concert, you actually saw Billy Connolly live and you nearly peed yourself because you were laughing so much. And you can reassociate that feeling, right, and say, you know what, what a brilliant night that was. Did you feel good? I did feel good. Right. So what's stopping you doing that again? I don't mean going and seeing Billy Connolly, but what's stopping you having that feeling again? Nothing.
But this is it. People think that they have to be experiencing it all the time, when actually we know that the brain, the mind cannot tell the difference between a memory and a made up thing, and a dream. So that's how the whole law of attraction and manifestation works, because, it's a case of feel this, do that. Some people just don't get that though. They don't get it because they don't have the mindset. They've never been aware of the idea of how to do that. It's like some of the things that we do when we're doing trance work with people, and we have to pick their jaws up off the floor because they just didn't know they could do that. And then they're sitting there going, I did that. How do I do it again? Well, you will do it again, but it might not be exactly the same. Oh, but I want it to be exactly the same as that.
That's then remembering it back rather than creating something new, isn't it?
And this is it. We've been feeding people the fantasy for so long, or we have been being fed the fantasy for so long, that even now when we're trying to readjust with different ideas of how life should be and how life actually is, and if it really is what it is, or if is it just a hologram, or is it this, that, the other, does it matter? Because basically you're in it. And all you can do is what you can do to keep it going the way you want it to go. And there are going to be times when it's going to be total, as Willie would say, shit. And there are other times when it's going to be the bomb. Absolutely fantastic. And when it is the shit, we can remember what it's like, because then we say, oh, well, actually, it was never always like this. But just because we don't have a Ferrari and, an electric Tesla or whatever it is that is your dream vehicle, doesn't mean to say that you're going to be unhappy for the rest of your life.
Or that you're never going to get it.
Or that you're never going to get it. It just means that there's something that you aspire to, perhaps. And it doesn't, you might end up with a bloody Range Rover or something like that, because that was the prize that was going at the time, but it's still great. You can still trade it in and get a Porsche or a Ferrari or whatever, even if it's just a small one.
But Matchbox.
She means addicted to, I think, yeah.
But this is it. It's we have the capability, and I think that's what we have to do as therapists. What we're here for, our raison d'etre. And Descartes would say, question everything, doubt everything. But the doubt is also, am I really unhappy? Is this really the fault of this? Is it because of this that I'm unhappy? Or is it just because I'm not satisfied? Is it just because I'm not feeling it at the moment? Is it just because I'm looking at someone else who's telling me, like the Rolling Stones said, what shirt to wear, what cigarettes to buy, what you should look, who cuts your hair? In the old days, yes, in the old days, when we used to have things like, hairdressers, there was this guy called Vidal Sassoon. And if you didn't have one of his asymmetric cuts, you were nobody.
Talking of which, I think it's Mick Jagger's birthday today. I heard on the radio.
Another one. Oh, well, there you go.
He's still going from 79, maybe 8. I don't know. Right.
So, he got off of his cloud, and look what happened.
Well, anyway, what I think is we can often forget we have a choice. We are the kind of.
We get to design our own lives.
Manufacturers of our own destiny. So we can choose to be miserable and crab it and anxious and worried, or we can choose not to be. That's one of the great things you maybe say God gave you. God gave you a choice, right? You always have a choice. I can choose not to try and change that because I can't change it. Or I can choose to accept it. I can choose, I will change that because I think that's within my capabilities, right? Or I can choose to think negatively or positively. I can choose. We've always got a choice, and people kind of forget that. And I always remind myself of it going, you've got a choice, Willie. You've got a choice to be miserable. You get a choice to walk about with a face like a wet fortnight. Or you can choose to go, you know what? I'm not doing that. I'll smile at people. I'll say hello to them. I'll open doors for people. Not because it's a play, it's because I choose to do it, because it makes me feel good. Right? And if they say thanks very much, that was very nice of you, I say, an absolute pleasure. Sometimes though, they'll go,
Yeah, who are
okay.
you? I don't know you. Why are you saying hello to me?
But at the end of the day, their opinion doesn't really matter, does it?
Yes, it
Well,
does.
a question of mind over matter, because I don't mind because they don't matter, right?
It's like Castaneda said, though. You can make yourself miserable or you can make yourself happy. The amount of energy it takes is the same.
Yeah. But it's also that point as well that you're the one that's responsible for your own happiness. And when you were talking about the relationships and everything else earlier on, it's not up to your partner or your kids or your parents or whoever's around you to make you happy. That's up to you.
We're kind of going against the grain of all the songs ever written now. And all the romances. Oh, you make me so happy. Oh, I can't live without you because without you I would be.
Maybe that's why I'm single then.
That's country western music, just that's it. Totally
That's
off.
it.
Bang.
Off you go. But it is that point, is it? We are the designers of our own lives. We get to choose how we want to live our lives, where we want to go with our lives, and what we want to do with them. And if we don't get that choice, then it's probably because we've done something bad, and some of Willie's ex-colleagues have put you behind bars.
Then that was a choice to do that
Sometimes it's because, say, the environment people are in. If the environment tells you that, and it's the way you allow that to happen, your behaviour changes because of that environment.
Yeah.
Then get out of the environment if it's not helping you. That's the simplest way of doing it. Stay away from whatever's causing that, and then we have that choice. We have it. How many people say, "Oh, but that dream was so real," because that's how their mind's telling them. And if you can dream that and it's so real, why can't you just make your day the same way and feel that way? Because we know that the dream's not real. You know it, but you still say, "Oh, it was so real though. This happened, that happened." Because you know what gets me, even with a lot of young ones I talk to, the biggest problem is because, well, I don't know how I'm going to get there. Well, why not enjoy just the journey going and see where you get to? Why do you have to know where you're going to get to? This thing about getting sent, somebody was sent to me because their parents thought they've lost their purpose in life. I went, right, so what's their purpose in life? Because what is today might not be the same thing tomorrow when they get up. Their purpose might be different next Monday after the weekend. Depends who they meet, what they do. Life can change.
And their parents
stop looking at getting there. Yeah, it's the purpose. The parents are looking for them to go on. That's what they're talking about.
And that's their deferred idea of what life could be for them.
Yeah, but how many parents also live their life through their children?
Yeah, and it's
because they say it's because I don't want to have them to be the way I was. Yeah, same thing.
They've got to have better than what we had.
Yeah, but then you try and get them to live what you were supposed to do with the life that you never done with them. So is that the same thing as letting them have something that's better? No. So it goes back to Willie's thing, and it goes back to uncertainty. We have a choice to be uncertain or to be certain. Sometimes I want to be uncertain because it'd be great. I just don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, I have a day without anything. Sometimes I want uncertainty because if I've got to be there at a certain time to do something, I don't like being late. So that comes into you. The uncertain bit of it for me is just anticipation. It's that exhilarating, but that can add a little edge to something because I don't know what will happen if I don't do it. Well, I'm late for a change. What happens if I go this way instead of that way? It's like the fork in the road. When I asked somebody to draw that, one of the clients I had, she drew a straight line that way and a straight line that way. And I went, but is it really that? Because if you take that choice in life, you're just going to go from here right to day you die, nothing's going to happen. She went, I don't mean it. Why can you like it? It goes backwards sometimes. Sometimes you go forward, sometimes you go sideways. That's life. It's all about how we look at it and how we take it. And I like Willie's way of looking at it there is stuff it. Just whatever's going to happen is going to happen anyway. So why look at uncertainty as a bad thing? Why look at fear as something bad? Fear can be so great. Fear helps you. And there's a million acronyms you get for it. I always use the same one, face everything and rise. If you face anything in life, you can do anything. As simple as that. Whether it's uncertain or not, go and try it. If you don't like it, that's all you don't like it. Don't do it next time. But go and make that effort and try something different. Because you know what? The funny thing was, you might actually enjoy it.
It's true that fear is taught.
Yeah.
And it's those expectations of someone else's fear that we take on because we're energetic beings. So we're feeling it. We're feeling their fear. We can see they're anxious for us. So it must be really, really bad that, oh, I can't do that because it's fearful. And there's a lot of things that people don't do, not because they tried them and they failed even, but because someone else tried them and failed and told them they couldn't do it.
Mm.
I had a friend once who, when I was working down in London, and I said to him, well, I'm going up the road. Do you want to come with me? Going to Scotland. And he said, on one condition. And I said, what's that? He said that we brown sign it. I'm like, what do you mean? All those brown signs that says, this is this historic monument, this is this castle, this is this fairground, this is this attraction. I want to go off the motorway to each of those brown signs. I said, yeah, but I'm never going to get back to work on time. We can do a few, but not them all. But again, isn't life better if we go and brown sign it?
But then we should have said to us, we can't do it all on this trip, but we'll do some this, some the next time, some the next time. That's the bit about it that's good.
There's always another day, isn't
There's always another day. We've always got, again, that's anticipation. The certain thing is, I don't know what ones I'm going to do today, but we're going to do some of them.
And
So
at
you
least
know you're going to do some, you just don't know which ones.
And at least you're doing something. You're going to find something that was different. You're going to find something that's going to teach you something, whether that's going to be something that makes you feel like you've just had a slapped backside, or something that's going to make you feel really, really good about yourself and you've just fallen into a box full of chocolate. Who knows? But it's one of those things that when it comes to anything that's got "un" in front of it, the other part of the word counts too.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here doing what we do because we're actually certain that all of you guys out there have the ability and the capability of making your life what you want it to be, of reaching for it. And even if it's a case of you reach for it and you get kind of sidetracked down a brown sign road, who knows? But you find something there that makes you really comfortable and feel really good. Doesn't mean to say that you have to make that your postcode. And the same goes for if you find a wallow hole and you find this place where it's meh. You don't need to make it your postcode. Everything is a movable feast. We don't actually make time, and we didn't construct time so people could freeze it and stay in one state. There's a whole gamut of states out there. And it's good to experience them and then sit and say, okay, been there, done that. I know how it feels. I can deal with that. I can go forward and I might do it again because I'm not thinking about it, or I might not. I might find something absolutely fantastic, or I might find something that I want to say, nah, not today, not now, cheerio. But the whole point is, like Willie said, like Tony said, like Angela said, we have choices. We just have forgotten to remember that we have. And we have the right to exercise them, no matter what anybody else tells us, as long as we are prepared to accept the consequences. So I think with that uncertain thing left to say, we will close for this time, this month, and we'll see you next month. So bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Take care.